James, I think we should start off by you just telling us, about your company, what you do, and how you got into it.
So my company's Hard Retrievers. I started out always wanting a gun dog of some sort. I ended up having a little dog named River that I started as a hunting dog. Then we developed her ended up being a competition and doing the master hunt test. And then from there, we got another dog named Bo, which is a chocolate lab. And we've done some really good things with him. And we decided to actually do it for a living. Now we mostly focus on hunting dogs, but we do train some of the higher end field trial dogs and hunt test dogs. So our bread and butter is our gun dogs, though, for sure.
Cool. So whenever you I guess, were you into duck hunting, or what got you into gun dogs or wanting a gun dog? Let's say, was it the field trial aspect or hunting?
So there was a year that, the first year I really went hunting, and we hunted a lot. It ended up flooding the entire Trinity River, and there was not a spot that was shallower than like 20 feet to hunt there. So there's no real way to get your birds besides get in the boat and go get them yourself, because we didn't have a dog. So I was like, enough of this. I want to train a dog. We'll figure out one way or the other. And I ended up with a dog named River, and we started her out young, and before we knew it, she was our gun dog that went everywhere. She was the pride of Trinity River, and then Bo is the pride of Trinity Oxbow. So kind of developed on the Trinity River area, going almost every day of duck season, trying to find a couple of ducks here and there.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Just I guess I'd never heard that story or heard that. I know you put a lot of emphasis on training in certain on the training in certain training situations. So it's good to hear that that's where it was all started. I think that's where a lot of my passions in life started, were also from duck hunting. So we share that in common.
Yeah, it's just like any kind of good product. You're trying to find a solution, right? So my solution is training that dog. And once I figured out how to train the dogs, it just came pretty easy, and it was fun, and it's something I love to do. So it's really not working or anything. So
Now you got about 80 different solutions in your dog.
right now we got all kinds of stuff that we're working on, and all different types of dogs, and we kind of do a little bit of everything.
You got 80 problems looking for 80 solutions.
Yeah, pretty much.
with 80 personalities that own those 80 different dogs.
Yeah, the training the dogs is the easiest part. Is training the owners can be the tough part.
But. Oh yeah, I remember when I picked my dog up. He didn't. He knew James was his master. He looked at me like, I'm gonna see how much I can get away with. And once he figured out I knew what I was doing, then he played ball.
Oh yeah.
He was a Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, Cash. Yeah, he was an extremely nice dog. We finished him around 9 months to 9 to 12 months. But he was teal hunting. When did we?
He was teal hunting at 10 months. 10 months. He was running blinds, cat. I mean, he was a finished dog at 10 months. Would have had. I think we would have been real close to a master title by 12, or would have had it.
He was right there at that. And I mean, we decided to hunt the dog instead of doing the competition. We'll get in that probably later, the difference in the two. But for sure, I think the first time I went out with you, and I think, we killed like 36 or something. I mean, we killed limits.
Clayton was there too.
Yeah. No, I just remember it was like that opening morning. It was like, poor Cash, his first hunt was like 25 guns.
Yeah.
In a rice field.
First time I'd ever taken him hunting ever. I picked him up on the way there, and there was like 12 of us hunting in a blind for teal. And James was like, I was like, man, you think this is all right? He's like, well, too late now. He did good, man. He didn't break on the first one. He didn't break, he didn't break at all. But I was like, man, there's no way when 12 guns go off. I was like, there's no way this dog's not breaking. He steady as can be.
Yeah, that's extremely nice to get that much work out of a young dog. I mean, that's kind of a rare exception for a dog that young, but I mean, he definitely had the talent to do it. So, no reason not to allow him to flourish.
No. Clayton and I are lucky because we both have good dogs that we've been, most people get their dog when they're 2, right? They don't get a finished dog. Most people from most trainers don't get their dog till they're, 2 years old. And I think that's what the reason I really wanted to get a dog from you was because your niche is training those dogs early, right? So
So we do a pretty good job of developing pretty early. As far as yours, I mean, we had your puppy as a pup, so we literally birthed the dog out of a dog named Chocolate Eclair, and she's thrown some absolutely amazing dogs. Also, the pedigree allowed us to do it a little bit. She's known for throwing those type of dogs as well. Some dogs mature at different rates, so it just depends on what type of dog. We got lucky with yours, and it was extremely good. Now we have a pretty good record with it, but every dog's going to mature a little bit different. But for Cash, I mean, he was definitely ready. So he was a good dog, very easy, super easy to train, knew exactly what he wanted. And well, heck, you saw him when we had our bird crates. He couldn't get away from the daggum bird crates and the birds. So live birds was never a problem. And the retrieving aspect was never a problem. So
we'll have to put that picture that you took up on the screen, Hayden, the one that you sent
the video
of him trying to, he was on top of the crate.
Yeah. But the point though that I was gonna make is Clayton and I are lucky because we both have really good dogs, and most people don't. I've got another year and a half with my dog hunting that most people don't get because they don't get their dog till that dog's 2.5 finished, right? And so that's something that we got a jump on because you can finish those dogs early. That's your niche.
yeah, we try to get them. My idea is try to get the dog to the owner as fast as they can in hunting, as quickly as can, is really what we're really trying to do. So I don't want to keep the dogs a long time, to be honest. My belief is to get the dogs in the owner's hand as quickly as we can, but make sure it's still a complete dog.
Yeah.
At least at a level that the owner can handle as well. I know we also hunted his dog, the Chesapeake, as well that day. I believe did a really nice job as well. So,
Hider.
and yeah, she did really nice.
Yeah. Well, I think what we'll do here, we've kind of already talked about a little of this, but I'll just ask a question. We can talk about it a little bit, and then I'll let Hayden ask one. So the first one that I think I wanted to ask about was, say somebody listening that wanted to hunt gets a puppy as a gift, let's say from their parents on Christmas, or their girlfriend, or just randomly picks one up, what are some things for them to start doing, and what are some things for them to avoid as a puppy, right? Because my understanding of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know you're the professional here, but you want to start a good trajectory, right? You want to build a good foundation for the puppy, right? And so even if they're not going to take it to a trainer right away, there's certainly, is there things that they could do to kind of get them going down the right track?
Yes. I mean, there's a lot of things that we do and we believe in. A lot of things is we're going to take an assessment on the dog and see exactly what type of dog it's going to be. Does it like to naturally chase something? So sometimes we get it wrong about dogs is we believe that they're retrievers. I don't think they're really bred to retrieve. They're bred to chase. No, when you get anything, when I think of it, they're dogs are designed to chase something to get to their prey, and they're not supposed to bring it back and share it with you, right? It's supposed to be their own thing. So the whole bringing it back and giving it to us is what. So basically what I'm looking for is the actual desire to chase something. If we can get them to bring it back, that's going to be awesome. But what we try to do is we try to treat retrieves like dessert. We only need just a little bit of it, and we want to make it fun. We need to we want to be able to see a reaction in that puppy or that dog when I pull out that bumper and he sees it. He realizes it's about to be the most amazing time of his life for the next 3 retrieves. And that's it. We're only going to stop at that 3. We're not going to keep on doing it. We're going to leave him on a happy note where he might be jumping, playing, all that. We're not actually going to discipline him at all, no matter what he does, as long as there's a lot of excitement on that bumper, the bird wing. We actually start off with socks, weirdly enough, in the hallway is our biggest thing because it's soft, light, and we'll tie it up in a ball and we'll give it a throw. Then we can also, with that sock, we can introduce feathers inside the sock and also like a squeaky. So we can do the scent, sound, the taste, and the feel of something in its mouth going. So we try to, and obviously white is the eye. So we try to do all the senses as a puppy, what we're trying to grow the dog into later. So we try to teach them all in like, I guess, a stage. We want them to prepare them for what they're going to see later in the life. And we're trying to build a lot of energy. There's some things that we want. Now, if we have a super, super hyper dog, we might not need as much retrieving as if a dog we have that just doesn't really care about it. We're going to have to attack it a little bit different way. So
if you had to put a number on the amount of retrieves that they were going to do with their puppy a day, what would that be? I know you said like a dessert, right? You don't want to just.
It's a dessert. So I do everything. Nothing is like an engineered problem. It's not like you can't sit there and do it like a math problem because it's never going to add up. What you need to do it is reacting off the puppy itself. So if the puppy is extremely excited and we get 3 and he's super still excited, that's good. We're going to stop it at 3. Now, if that dog gets 1, is super excited and it stops on the next one and doesn't want to go, I'm going to put that toy up for a couple of days. I'm going to be a lot more calm, mellow. The next time I bring out that toy, I'm going to be super excited. Now I know that he only did 1 good retrieve last time. I'll do 1 again. I'll put it up and I'll come back the very next day and try to get 2 and try to make the excitement. But what we're going to do is make sure that the most exciting thing that dog has done all day is with that bumper or with that toy, with that sock, with the duck wing, whatever you want to introduce that dog to. That's what we're going to make sure is going to be the most exciting part of his whole day. So it's really going to be based on your dog and what kind of enthusiasm you want. A puppy is going to always look for approval from its owner, really, as a young puppy. So there's a lot of learning there. That's why I think we're fairly good at the young puppy stage. The more time you spend with your puppy, and it doesn't even have to be retrieving. I always say, always make the puppy's mind think, do something different out of the box. And what I mean by that is let it hear different sounds, let it walk over a tarp or feed bags or leaves, go out, make them jump across logs. Let's get their feet wet of some sort. If it's like maybe there's a puddle or something, we can play in a little bitty puddle. If it's a warm day outside, and then we'll go into other type of training that we can possibly do. But what we're really trying to do is engage their brains and try to get them to figure out a problem, actually, the solution to the problem. Because in the end, that's what we're going to train the dog anyway. We want them to be able to think through something. How do I turn this off? What's going to be pressure, or how do I get that reward? How do I earn something? How does my behavior affect what I get? So if I sit and be nice, do I get the bumper? Yes. If I'm rowdy and jumping everything, obviously I'm not going to pay attention to that dog because that's not a behavior I really want to condone. Now everything has its cases per se. Now, when we're in retrieving, that dog can't do anything wrong. In my eyes, for the first little while, that we're going to develop that desire in that dog and to make it absolutely love it. So I really don't care too much about what he does during that little retrieving process. But during the rest of the time, if we're working with on leash or we're working doing treat training or place training, anything like that in the house, we'll be able to correct those behaviors, but not during the retrieve. Because if we're going to develop a gun dog, we're going to need him to get in there and just absolutely love it, because he's going to have to get in there in the cold weather. He's going to have to do it in a little bit of hot weather. I mean, most of the times when we're duck hunting or dove hunting, the weather is not the most desirable for us. I mean, if we're not getting out in our big Sitka gears and waders and insulation, we don't want to be out there, you know? So you got to think about that for the dogs. The dog really has to love it to want to perform for you. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, we've really got to develop that desire. Get them as crazy as duck hunting as we are. That's the whole goal.
What what are some of this is something I see a lot on social media that I've learned from you, but a lot of people probably don't know this. What are some of the bad habits that you see people letting their dogs get away with after they pick their dog up from you?
As far as bad habits of things is, that can be a whirlwind. It's all depending on what we're wanting the dog to do and what we're trying to achieve. One thing, I think the biggest thing that we really need to make sure is our dog's not breaking while we're hunting. Because I just actually had a friend that had his dog shot. I mean, literally went out there and broke, and on a guided hunt, and you have people that on those type of hunts are not as familiar with the rules or aware of a dog. They're just shooting things out there. It's not like they meant to, and that dog breaks, it's going to put itself in harm's way. So a dog that breaks, I mean, we really need to keep that under control. We don't want that dog to leave until all guns are discharged and are done. Then we'll send our dog out for the retrieve. If he does break, what we need to do is we need to put him on a leash or put him on a stake out with a quick release is what I usually recommend. There's a product that we'll use that has just a tab. You can literally have your dog on a stake and you can pull the tab when you're ready if you even have concerns about the dog breaking. Another thing is that the whining and stuff, a lot of people, you'll hear their dogs barking at these birds when they're coming in. Obviously we don't want that.
Yeah.
So if you allow that dog to continue on getting their retrieve, you're promoting that behavior. So what we want to do is I'll let him watch the entire series go. I mean, if my dog breaks, it's probably done for the day. And he's going to watch another dog break. And then we'll take him out next time and I'll put him back on that stake and probably let him watch a few more. And that's just off the safety of the dogs. I know everybody is more worried, oh, my dog went and got that duck, but at what cost to the dog? And we invest a lot of time and energy in these dogs. Yes, they love to do it, and they're going, I mean, sometimes they'll break every now and then, but we really want to have that honed in pretty good. Now, where's a little bit different is if we're just starting a dog, that's when I know this will sound a little bit different. That's when I'll actually allow them to break because they don't know what's going on yet. That's something as trainers, it's hard to mimic, going into the woods at dark, throwing out all the decoys, and then usually have a bunch of friends that are box of birds type people that are shooting 20 shots to get one bird. And the dog is just like, what in the world's going on? I want that dog on the very first hunt to be successful. I want that dog, if it does break, I can fix that because we're going to do it. But at least we're prepared for that dog. We can shoot high and we know what's going to happen with that dog if it's that way. But usually I still have them tied out. And on your first hunt, you don't bring the gun. You just bring your dog. You bring a leash or have him on a stake, and you're going to be the one releasing him on his name, letting him see the birds. Because you sacrifice a couple hunts just to get the dog used to the hunting situation, and then we'll let it send. But so say on that first hunt and you get some in, all your guys are shooting bang, 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 you're holding your dog and you got it and the dog actually sees. I mean, as soon as that dog has a real good lock on it, I'm going to let it go just to get it out there. Because this first couple of retrieves out there is going to be pretty important. But then the very next couple of flocks, I'm going to hold that dog and keep him steady for the entire thing. But probably on his first bird, I'll let him get away with just a little bit more, if that makes sense to y'all.
Oh yeah, I learned that the hard way actually with Penny. my Chesapeake, I don't know if you ever saw her or not. She was old by the time that she was around you, but I put her down recently. She was 14, but I got her when Hayden and I were in college and hunted a lot together. And I got my hands on every kind of training material I could and read and did a good job. But it was like, we had just moved down to Kingsville, and there's just so many, birds in the area where we were. And it's like, I hadn't really been exposed to that, type of hunting, let's say, or that, high pace, hunting. And the first time I took her out, it kind of wasn't really like a hunt, but the second time I did, I definitely screwed up, right? It's like I had to pay for those mistakes. It's like I might have did everything right before that moment, but I chose to hunt instead of be very observant of her on that first hunt. And I was unintentionally rewarding her for behaviors that I didn't even know, wasn't even aware that she was doing, right? Like she was being unsteady, let's say. And then it's like, oh, I just sent her out because I was so excited about the hunting aspect of it, right? It's like, I guess it seems like and it seems like you're saying this and I'm just saying it in a different way. It's like, it would be advisable to somebody that takes their dog out, but just think about, I know it's, if you're to that age and you hadn't shot many ducks and it's your first time out on a hunt, it's like, you have to think about what that dog's going to be like the next however many years, or how difficult it could be to correct the problem, right? Just, I know it's hard, but I definitely think that that's excellent advice. I wish I would have had somebody to give me that advice back then.
Yeah, we try to tell everybody, and it's hard when people are spending money or have a lot of time invested in the first thing. They want to shoot the birds too. But really for your dog, you got to think the first couple of hunts is going to be very small sacrifice compared to the rest of its life. I mean, like Hayden's dog, for instance, I mean, he got it at 9 months or 10 months, somewhere in there. Sitting out 1 or 2 hunts is not nearly as bad, because now, I mean, he's going to have that dog hopefully 10 years hunting it. So it's a small sacrifice to get the dog used to it. And a lot of it plays into the dog too. What type of dog do we have? Do we have one of those fire breathing dragons, or do we have one of those dogs that are just going to do? If I have a dog that's super excited, I'm not going to let it break, even if it's the first one, because I already know, because you could see a dog's look. I mean, a lot of this is going to be based on your dog, but if you already see that dog pinned down, he's ready to go, he sees the bird, and we want to release him, we'll hold him, But if I have a dog that's kind of unsure and not quite sure, that's the dog that I'm like, I'll let it happen once or twice, just so it just gets familiar with the thing. That, and another thing is, don't be scared to bring a little bumper with you in your blind, And then most of us are not shooting limits every day. I wish we were. But a lot of us are lucky to scratch out 4 or 5 birds a hunt. At least that's how I've always was. If I got 7 birds, I was happy.
Speak for yourself, James.
3 of them were woodies, They came out the first 5 minutes of hunting and sitting there waiting all day, because those mallards don't fly until noon. So we sit there and wait. But that's when you have a nice bumper, or if you have a dead bird, then we can actually train in that blind. I mean, we'll throw one, tell your buddies to shoot at that bumper, and just turn it into a training thing. Or even when everything's all done, and y'all are about to pick up, just tell your buddies, hey, can we just get just a couple of trees with this dog and this blind, and let's be successful with it, instead of just being upset and leaving. Your dog is, the first time the dog's going to not be sitting for 2 hours, he's going to be like, what in the world are we doing? He's going to be happy, or he'll be asleep in the corner, or there's going to be all kinds of different things. But one thing we want to do is we want to make it fun. Another thing we're not going to do is correct that ever living blessed out of them. A lot of people get pretty hot on that collar, and that's something we don't want to do either. So
I can definitely, with Eider, I've definitely been so for the people listening that don't know Eider, so I have a Chesapeake Bay Retriever about the same age as Cash, and she hasn't gotten near the training attention that my first Chessie got, but I get excited about the things that I have to be observant of myself when I'm disciplining her or trying to correct her, because I tend to get more excited, or let's say frustrated or worried about the things that Penny, I could have done a better job at with my last dog. And so it's like I have to watch myself to not get, she doesn't take much for a Chessie. She doesn't take much discipline at all. She's not very hard-headed. So
And another thing too is the amount of birds they see. Clayton and I went hunting last year in a place where there's probably 50,000. I don't know how many ducks there were. I couldn't even count them. There were just so many. And
my teacher taught me to count.
Yeah, I mean, there was just a lot. Over 10,000 easy. And my dog, you could tell he was like, what in the world, So I had to kind of keep, I had to, even though he had hunted a while, he'd never seen that many birds in one place at one time, coming in at one time. So I had to control myself as hard as it was, sometimes not to shoot. I had to let Clayton shoot, and I just had to stay and stare at my dog and make sure, he did what he was supposed to do. And he did, but that's just part of it too. I'm not, this year, like right after Thanksgiving, I lost the charger to my shock collar, to my collar. And I mean, I don't know why I didn't. I just didn't buy a new one. But, just that collar being on that dog, it was never turned on one time. He still, he acted right. And there was a few times, I hunted him without it, and he did perfect. It's like once they hit a level of realizing that, I think they just want to please you. They just want to be praised, and they want to do good for you. Then they really act right. But I think it comes with age.
Right. Well, it comes with experience too.
Experience and age, right? Once he got 100 hunts under his belt, he chilled.
Well, some of us aren't that lucky to get that many that quick, but I will say the other thing you're talking about, and it kind of goes in the same context as what we're talking, is the starting these dogs out, is on different birds. That's probably the biggest problem I hear people have. One is dove hunting dogs. Dove are totally different as trainers. They're hard to keep. We can get some pigeons that are pretty close, but dove's feathers are so different. And we're in the South, and Texas in the summer, and during that's where y'all are hunting. It gets kind of hot and it's tough. And the places that you're hunting those dove is usually like a tilled up field of some sort, or a mowed. What are y'all doing? Sunflowers or
Sesame? Yeah, I mean, even like just a pasture. It's
yeah. So the goat weed and all that, and there's so much scent out there, and then it's hot, and a lot of times we really want to pay attention. One, the dog not getting overheated in those situations, because I mean it could be very easy to be 100 degrees when y'all are dove hunting. We don't want to do that to the dog. It's easier for us to collect it. But two is that dog, even though it duck hunts, it's picked up a million ducks. That dove is different. The other bird that's up north that we have will be those graders. When we're introducing a dog to a new bird that's big, graders, heck, even we shoot a lot of the sandhill cranes, those ribeyes in the sky. We need to introduce that dog with happy and fun. Even if that dog's been on 1,000 hunts, that dog needs to be introduced to that bird as a play toy. Like if you have a little fun bumper and we're just having fun in the backyard, because that goose, if it comes up and it spreads its wings, it can be 6 feet long. It can be kind of intimidating, even to an experienced dog, because they're like, what the heck is that big thing? It's bigger than me,
Mm-hmm.
And now you want me to go tackle that. So we need to make sure that those dogs are introduced to those types of birds correctly, and we're not shocking them just because the dog is force fetched, that we're shocking them to get that bird. That's not the correct solution. The correct solution is actually teaching that dog it's okay to fetch it, and that's actually what we're looking to fetch. So when we get one of those big graders in, we want to make sure they're dead, the sandhill cranes, and we want to make sure they're dead before they retrieve. And if he doesn't go out there and go grab it and pick it up for you, go with him. No hurt feelings, pride. It's all about learning. Let's play with that bird up we'll show them that that's the bird that we actually want to get. We're not going to apply pressure on that dog. Actually, weirdly, I've heard all kinds of crazy stories, but I did have a client that, I mean, the first thing he did was wanted to shock the dog because it wasn't fetching the bird. Well, the bird is like this and quacking at it, and then it gets shot. So now that bird, as soon as it did this, it's relating that as the shock, and he become big, and now it's the bird. So now retraining that dog to go and attack that bird like he does ducks becomes a little bit of challenge. We were able to do it, but there's no need to do any kind of hard corrections on anything new, no matter what it is. I don't care. I mean, some of us have to shoot hoodie McGanzers. Those are like an oily bird. There's some dogs that don't like picking those up because they smell like fish. I mean, they're just a totally different bird. Just because they're ducks, even the breeds can be a little bit different. So now what we train with mostly is mallards, and then of course once teal season comes, we'll have a few teal and some other birds. But don't be surprised if the dog just doesn't pick up the bird just because it has a different scent, look, and it's just a little bit different than what it's used to. So
yeah, learn from Clayton's mistakes. That was something else I did with Penny. We were getting, well, I used pigeons in puppy training and stuff, and then some quail, which I know isn't the most ideal bird to use. They're kind of fragile, but then some ducks. That was easy enough introducing ducks when she was a puppy. But that next season, I mean, she was going. We would bring out 9 guns, and we would shoot a limit, and it would just be, and she'd bring back every bird, man. And one time we had a juvenile blue goose, or I guess some kind of colored phase of a snow goose that is a smaller bird, start to fly into the decoys, and he was 25 yards off the water, and he got shot. I mean, I don't know, 10, 12 times. But anyways, fell out there, sent Penny, and I had already been through force fetch with her, right? So I was like, the dog's technically supposed to pick up anything. That's what I'm thinking in my brain, right? It's like, there was a dowel rod with barbed wire wrapped around it that my dog picked up. It could pick up a damn goose. It's feathered just like a duck. And that was what I did. I went out shooting and get it. She was kind of sat and looked at it and looked back at me, and I'm like, Butch, nope. So get up out of the layout blind and went next to her and did the ear pinch, right? And it's like, you're like the negative association that you're talking about, right? It's like, I think especially as a younger guy or somebody that hasn't really start to try to think about like dog psychology or what's going on through a dog's brain. You're just a younger guy that's like, hey, the rules said I was supposed to do this, or the book said I was supposed to do this, so do this. And obviously it doesn't say to pinch your dog's ear. And but yeah, I mean, that negative association, it came with some consequences, right? To just the smell of a goose in general, and then pinching her ear, and then I'm coming down on her, right? So I can definitely see that. She ended up getting over it the next goose hunt we went on, but it definitely took her a while, and it was kind of embarrassing. But in that situation, it wasn't the dog's unfamiliarity with the goose. It was more of its familiarity, but its negative association that I created by trying to do exactly what you said not to, which is like, go ahead and do the ear pinch until she picks up the goose, right? So
yeah, that's what we try to tell our people, is especially on new birds. I mean, one, I can't house a bunch of greater Canadian geese. It's just not feasible for me. I mean, those birds are huge. And ducks are easier to come by. They're a little less expensive, and they're pretty hardy. But our biggest thing is side on the dog first. We can always correct it later. And on that force fetch, it's what we're teaching a concept with force fetch. It's not so much to fetch something, and some people will say anything, but really, if you're going to do that, you'd have to go through every little item, because everything's a little bit different, and force that dog to that item. What we're trying to teach on that force fetch is actually how to get rid of the pressures, in my opinion, and that is to get the dial that you were saying and hold it in your mouth and know to hold. And get that concept. But once we get through that, there's not too much really that you're going to go back to that force fetch, because the whole point of it was to teach how to alleviate that pressure, and also to pick something up and hold it and keep it in its mouth. Right now, when we switch to new items, whatever it is, we should be able just to introduce it with a hey and some fun bumpers, just like you do at what we were talking about earlier with the sock, and have fun with it. Hey, just going to be the most exciting thing in the world. And they shouldn't actually want to fetch it. Even if they don't fetch it the first couple times, we'll come back and do it, because we'll try to err on the side of the dog versus beating a dog up for not fetching the bird. It's just not what we're trying to do.
Right.
We're really big on teaching.
Cash did the same thing the first time I took him snow goose hunting. He ran out there, looked at it, he picked it up, and then, you know, once he figured out, oh, this thing's cool, then he, you know, now he loves them. I think he'd rather grab a goose on dry land than he would a duck, because he can hit them 40 miles, and they both roll.
Hey, so
Goose hunting is fun.
let's talk a little bit about the differences between a field trial dog and a duck hunting dog. What your perspective on the differences, and if you can hunt a field trial dog, and you know how it might hunt differently than a dog that's trained specifically to hunt, and if it's going to act, let's say, better or worse.
All right. Yeah. So that's a good question now. So we do a couple different things. We have hunt tests and we have field trials. So a field trial dog, I don't hunt my field trial dogs. It's just no way, just type of training that needs to be done. And it's really not conducive. I might hunt my dog once, but we're not going to go out there all the time and do hunting. The hunt test is supposed to simulate a hunting situation, but in all reality, I still kind of get away from hunting. So in my belief, and what I've always told everybody is, let's hunt the dog first, because that's what we enjoy. Unless you plan on wanting to go around all these hunt tests and that's something that you're going to involve your life and that's what you want to do, let's do it that way. But if your life evolves around duck hunting, let's teach it to hunt, because it's going to be two separate scenarios. And I'll tell you the biggest difference. And while we train, we mostly focus on hunting dogs. And if our guys want to test the dogs, we will do it after hunting season. But so in a hunt test, what they're doing is grading the dog's marking ability. So depending on what test it is, they'll throw a bird and they want it to go straight to that bird and pick it up as fast as possible in the straightest line possible. And they don't want it to miss water. They don't want it to miss cover. They want it to go straight to that bird, pick it up and come back. And then they'll throw other marks. Well, that dog can't go back to that mark. It needs to go somewhere else to a whole new mark. And if it goes back to that area, then it's thrown out of the competition. Whereas in a hunting situation, and what we train our hunting dogs is I want that dog, because I want that dog going that same area a lot, because when we shoot our birds, it's in the exact same place. I mean, when we shoot limits of however many men that we have, they're usually going to be somewhere in that decoy spread, hopefully, unless we're sky blasting, then who knows where they land, right? But they're going to be in that spread somewhere in that general area. So I can keep my dog going in there one after another, and we could pick up, if we get lucky and hit 10 birds, I can send that dog 10 times in that one area, and he's going to find all those birds. And maybe we have a cripple that goes off to the left, or one goes off to right, and I can whistle cast and send him out of the area. That's where we focus on. Or we have that one that sails way out there that is just kind of clipped and it doesn't die until it's 200 yards out, then we can really push that dog back. Versus a hunt test, you don't want that dog going into that same area, because that's where you fell and you're going to go home, because the dog should have known that there wasn't two birds killed in that one area, which in reality, I don't believe is the correct way. That's why I always say, let's focus on what we love to do. Hunting, if that's what you love to do, let's focus on that. And if you want to develop a competition dog, then we can do that, but we're going to do it after season, when we can start training different habits, far as the way that we enter the water, the way we take casts, the way the dog hunts. It's just a different style dog. And then field trials, I mean, you're competing against the absolute best. Now, we've had some pretty good luck with our last two Derby dogs. We went to the Derby Nationals and finaled both of our dogs, which is a dogs that are under 2, and they're the 80 greatest dogs in the whole country at that age. And we line up to see who's the best. So we went from 80 to, I think, 14 finalists. And and then during the weekend test of those derbies, you're placing 1, 2, and 3, and 4 are the only ones that get points. So then you have jams, which are just kind of like judges' merits, that you finish the test, but you don't get any points or really recognition towards it. And then we can move to all age, which we now have the 2 Derby national dogs. Or one's a chocolate. We got some all age points on him. We got a second last year at Mid Illinois. And then our dog that just finished the Derby, which is named Babe, we'll be doing her in all age. Now those dogs we don't hunt. Those dogs are going out. They'll see four marks that can be all over 400 yards, which is not a typical scenario for hunting situations. I mean, when's the last time you seen a bird shot and it falls out 400 yards and you got 4 other ones the same way? It just doesn't happen. But
got a bunch of people shooting 410s.
Yeah, and we're shooting ARs at them or something out there. But no, but I mean, it's a fun thing to do. I'm a very competitive person. I want to know that I have the best dog, and that's for the person that wants to know he has the best dog. But you also got to put in the best training, because your very best trainers are sitting in that field trials, and they're just as competitive as you. And you're going to go up against on a derby, you could have 50 dogs. 30 dogs is kind of light. You go into opens, and every open that you'll see right now, it has 80 to 100 dogs in it. So, and you're playing for 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Those are the only ones that get points. So when you're looking, maybe this for why do people do it is probably the biggest question. Is 1 is kind of an ego kind of thing, and 2 is for breeding purposes, to know what type of dog we're getting. Is it capable of learning? And those dogs that are doing those field trials, and people see those FC, AFC titles on them, they know that those dogs have gone through the most rigorous amount of training and competed against the best, and they are the best dogs in the country. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Far as if you go to like a hunt test is like you have this certain guidelines. It's kind of like if you went to take a test. As long as you make a certain amount of it, you'll pass. You'll go on to the next grade, kind of thing. So it's a little bit different, where you can have all different style dogs. There's a little bit more lenient. There's a lot more pass rate. So your average master test now is probably passing 50% of the dogs, somewhere in there. You have some that are way hard that they're only passing a little bit less. And then you got some that they're passing 90%. So that's where, if we're looking on that breeding side, we want an extremely talented dog, we'll go on that field trial and look at some pretty successful dogs and see what their track record is.
So when you say the best dogs, you're just talking about specifically for hunting, right? Like, so let's say, so national, for like you have a national field champion, right? So for everybody listening, and correct me if I'm wrong, James, but you can win a field trial, and there's only 1 winner per field trial, and that's, I guess you have to have a certain amount of points and so else, but there's a field champion, and then amongst those field champions, they can compete for the national field championship, right? And then that's national field champion, right? So there's only 1 of those a year. Is that right?
Yeah. So in order to become qualified for nationals, and that's the field trial nationals, I think it's they have to have a win and 7. I think it's 7 total points or something. So you have to have a couple placements in a given year. So in that year, you need to 1 win, and the next is have another placement to equal I think 2 fourths, or a win and a third, a win and a second will get you there. Which again, you're going into the absolute best dogs. You're running against 80 to 100 dogs, and you got to win in place. So those dogs that are going to those field trials are your absolute top dogs there is in the country. That's why you'll see those FCs, and if AFCs, an amateur side, which is also a great dog. To be honest, the amateurs is about as good as the pros, to be honest. Most of them train on both sides or run on both sides. The pro will go on the open side, and the amateur will go on the am, or sometimes the am will do the all age open as well. There's some really good amateurs out there that compete at very high level. Now that what you're talking about, that national field trial champ, that only happens once a year, and they go up, and it's literally like a 2-week test that they sit there and go through 10 series of the most hard concepts and see who's the best dog.
So when you say, so I just wanted to clarify it, and I think I know what you're saying when you say the best dogs in the world, but how would a dog, if you were a veterinarian, how would the national, if we just had a dog, you know, national field, just won the national field championship, and you took him, you know, out to a hunt with, say, one of the hunting dogs that you've trained and that you would consider just above average, how would you suspect that national field champion would do versus that dog? Say they're side by side hunting heavy cover, hunting in cattails, there's birds landing in thick patches of cattails. How would you suspect that NFC dog would do compared to the hunting dog?
Well, they're two different dogs, really. So when I'm saying the best dog is the best at that sport, I'd say. Now you have some absolute awesome meat dogs. I mean, I have a couple of wonderful clients. I mean, they're collecting 4,000 birds a year in hunting situations, all different types. That field dog is still going to be awesome, without a doubt. It's still going to be able to do everything you can imagine. It might not have the experience of doing all those little hunts, but it still performed very well. There wouldn't be no doubt. Like, so for instance, the chocolate that got a second all age, he goes hunting and he doesn't miss a bird. I mean, he's good. So it's not that they can't do it. It's just what we're not going to do is we're not going to bring one of those dogs to hunt. One, hunting conditions can be a little bit dangerous for such an expensive dog, to be honest. And it's also going to it's going to undo a lot of good training that we have in that dog.
Yep. So you said something that I want to bring up, because a lot of people, like certain people in my family, they don't, you know, they know hunting dogs are expensive, but they don't really know how much dogs cost, like the caliber of dogs that we have. What's that you know, that FC champion dog? What's a dog like that worth?
Man, a lot. So
Yeah.
I mean, I think there was one that a client declined at 300K for one that was an FC, but they're very expensive. But most of those dogs are over 5-6 years old. And if you get an FC title, that's going to be probably at least a 6-figure dog, easy. Just for breeding, right? I mean, just breeding purpose itself. They're breeding a lot of these dogs. You see, for instance, like the Windy City Mighty Mouse, or the other one, Luke, that just won 2 years ago, or we have that the yellow that won that is True Line Floyd. Those dogs are bringing in probably $5,000 a stud fee, and they're studding out a lot. So, I mean, they're very expensive dogs, especially when they get to that caliber. So I mean, even just think about, I mean, even cash, or even a finished gun dog is going to be an expensive dog, because you have 2 years of training, and you're looking at the average trainer right now is probably right around $1,000 a month, and you have 2 years in it. That's $24,000 into that dog. So,
yeah, I know.
So yeah,
Yeah, it's like having a kid in private school for 2 years, for like a little bit of college tuition at A&M.
Right. So I mean, even a finished dog, and that's where. So what I really like is selling finished gun dogs. I mean, I think that's where my specialty probably lies, is because I want people to have a great dog. My idea is, when I went hunting as a kid, I mean, we went deer hunting with that dog. We went squirrel hunting with that dog, duck hunting. If we were hunting, the dog went with us. And that's kind of the all around purpose dog we want to develop. Whereas you'll see some of these dogs that go for sale, and they're wondering why they're so cheap. Good dogs usually they're not for sale. I mean, in all honesty, that's not your typical thing. There's usually a reason behind why they're up. There's something there that is not. As far as when we have these finished dogs, I mean, they're extremely nice. They're not washout by no means. They're trained for a specific purpose. We didn't put them in our field trial program, because our field trial program is, I'm only going to put a couple of them. One, it's expensive to run. And two, I don't want a whole truck competing against each other. I don't believe in that philosophy either. So we like good, solid hunting dogs that you can be proud of to own, that you can take it in. It pretty much does everything you could imagine in a hunting scenario. Like we have them doing upland now. We have them. Heck, your friend Cody's tracking deer with his, and I mean, how many deer in South Texas and Mexico has he picked up with his duck dog? I mean,
Yeah, no
just
doubt.
with how the dog, we have his friend now has a shepherd lab mix that's going to do the same thing. So we're starting to get a lot more people that want their dogs a lot more versatile. I mean, that they just don't want duck hunting off that dog. They want tracking abilities. They want, if go squirrel hunting, if they want to go squirrel hunting, coons, I mean, anything, rabbits, there's all different types of hunting scenarios that you can bring your dog and enjoy the outdoors with it, and have a good time. And actually shed collecting is getting pretty big too. You probably know a lot about that as well. A lot of these dogs, it doesn't take much once we get these dogs completed to, once they're, like Clayton said earlier in the video, once they're force fetch and we can teach them that bone is something they're looking for, we can have them shed hunting. And they're picking up sheds.
Yeah, no doubt. That's pretty fun. That's rewarding, you know.
Yeah, I just want the dog to spend time with the owner. That's my biggest thing. Spend time with the owner. We want the dogs out and about with you. We think life with the dog, a nice dog, is fun. It's just fun because you don't have to worry about it. You don't worry about what you're going to do with the dog because the dog's coming with you. That's what our idea is.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
then if you do have to go out of the country, you can bring them by and we'll take care of them for you for a little bit.
one thing, so here's my hot take of the conversation here, and I'm interested to hear your opinion on it. What I've learned about field trials and hunt tests, and I think that there's definitely a place for those things, and it's definitely useful for dogs, especially, in the off season. I think all that's great. What I will say on more on the negative side is spending time on Facebook in general sometimes can just be the wrong place to be. There's always going to be somebody with something negative to say, but I wasn't around when field trials and hunt tests started, but it seems like common sense that these were created for people that wanted to breed their hunting dogs and some way to qualify them, right? Like, not all hunts are created equal, therefore it's hard to judge a dog based off of that. So you try to create a platform for multiple dogs to be tested on to get an idea of which one's better than the next. And it's not perfect, but it's pretty good at that, right? But I think what I've noticed that bothers me about it is not the utility in it, because I think there's great utility, but I feel like even since I've been involved in duck hunting, that I'm starting to see like what the hunting in the interest of the hunting in the field trial and the hunt test, like, continue to divide. It's like I've actually seen anti-hunting people in field trials, right? Like, there's certain kind of dog testing that's rooted in hunting, and it's like, how does this, it's just, I don't know. That part of it's kind of bothered me, and not, it's not at the frustration is not at the hunt test or the field trials or anything like that. It's more of like, I think, a natural circumstance of, it's became hunt test or testing, breeding. It's gotten so far as to say that, and this, you've talked about this, but it's like, there's dogs that are bred that'll never see a day of a hunt in their life, right? And there's people that that's what they want out of their dog, and you can't necessarily blame them for not wanting to hunt or care about hunting for that matter. But it's just kind of odd for me to see people sometimes kind of anti-hunting that are involved in Cause when I first started to think about this or first got into duck hunting, I assumed that we were one and the same, right? Or everybody would kind of support each other, but that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case with everybody,
Duck hunters are the worst.
Huh?
Duck hunters are the worst.
Yeah.
Man, I think it's really an industry driven thing. Yeah, I think a lot of pros, and I mean, I guess we'd be included. We like the idea of hunt test because we can get these dogs in the off season and develop them better for the clients. But I do think it's gotten to the point that, as far as the breeding aspect of things, that people are wanting to see these titles on these dogs, and they're not even watching them run. There's some pretty horrible dogs that are titled that you wouldn't want that dog to be your sire, or it might not even be style. So I think the biggest thing, and actually I have a lot of clients that do a lot of duck hunting. They just like the two parents. They've seen the two parents. They like the way they hunt. I'd rather the people see the two dogs and they enjoy the way they hunt and they interact with the family than they look at the titles and stuff. Now, if I have to go blindly and try to figure out what gun dogs, because everybody has the best gun dog. Clayton has the best gun dog. You have the best dog. I got the best dog, in opinion, right? So that's where the field trials takes a little bit. It's still pretty, I won't go into that, but can get kind of political there as well. But it's still a judge's opinion of which dog is best, but at least they're going against hard concepts and going against other dogs, or they're testing. So the whole idea of the test was for the breeding purposes, I believe, and to let that dog was trainable for the thing. Now, what I do think we're going away from, so it actually started, they used to do tests in front of the Queen in England and stuff like that. I believe it was where it actually started out, but I think we're getting away from a lot of good traits of the dog because we're able to train so well. So we're not getting these dogs, I don't believe, that have as much natural like holding ability, because in the olden days they wouldn't care about that dog. They wouldn't mess with it anymore. You know what I mean? They didn't like a dog. They didn't like the dog, and the dog was no longer reproducing. Now we can get I can darn near get almost every dog to pick up a bird through force fetch or some different psychology of the dog where it's not as a natural thing. So if you're looking for a dog, the one thing we want to just make sure their health clearances are there, and make sure the OFAs, the hips, elbows, eyes, they all check out, because we do want the best shot for the dog as far as health. But I would rather the people watch the mom and dad work and actually like that, and watch multiple dogs, because not every person needs the same dog. That's kind of a thing that we also get into is, man, that dog runs so fast to that bird. It has this humongous entry. It does all this other things. Well, sometimes those super fast dogs also do some stupid stuff really quick, and it takes a lot of handler ability to control that dog, versus a dog that just sits there at your side. It might not be the fastest dog, but it goes and gets every bird in a pretty decent manner. Is kind of the one I like to hunt beside, because I don't want one that's plumb nuts. People will tell you that dog will settle down. Maybe, maybe not. A lot of them are training. You got to train the ever living out of them to get it. But I would like, the dogs I really like are the dogs that are super steady. They think, and that everything is with the purpose. I don't like dogs that are absolutely and going absolutely nuts, and we can't control that dog, or it takes a lot to control him. And we're doing a lot of things to try to settle him down. I want a dog that knows exactly what his job is do and goes tackles it in an efficient manner. That, and it also, that dog that, like Cash, that dog's not going to get tired because he's not spending all his energy on the first, second, third bird. You could see him run all day long at the same pace. He's it's fluid. That, and you got to think, if that dog gets hyper and sitting there breathing hard, it loses its ability. So then it's sitting there hunting a lot longer when it doesn't go straight to the mark, versus you have a dog that goes out there at a good pace and he's not wore down. He can still use his nose. He still thinks. You can still blow the whistle and he sits. And there's a lot of good things about that type dog. So what I like people to do is really, really value what you want in that dog. What are you going to do the most? Are you hunting this dog once a year, 5 times a year, every day of duck season? If you hunt it every day of duck season, it's still not as many times it's going to be at the house with you watching TV. So what do you want that dog to be like in the house? What do you want it to be hunting? What are your ideas, the dog that you like? And just remember that it's not just a couple year or a little season commitment when we do it. It's going to be a long-term projection. I mean, that we're going to take care of this dog for, I mean, they'll live to 15, 16 years old, hopefully, at least 10. So it's going to be a long-term investment with this dog, and we want to make sure we enjoy that type. That's why it's important to really study the parents and see what the parents are like.
And that's another thing with our dogs is, my dog, besides being with you, I can probably count on one hand how many times he's slept outside in a kennel, or from at a club or something where they don't allow dogs inside. But otherwise, that dog doesn't sleep in the bed with me, but he sleeps on the floor next to me. And that was another thing, to me when I was shopping for a trainer before we met, was you take those dogs to Home Depot and you take them to Walmart and you take them to Tractor Supply when they're young and get them acclimated with, it's going back to what you said, let the puppies walk on a feed bag or a tarp. You get them acclimated with being around people so that when they, are getting a little older, or you send them home with their owner, they're a lot better off where you can bring them inside, or, if you have company over, they're mellow versus, just a place that doesn't do that. Right. So kind of a little bit of extra effort, I think, that makes your dog better,
Yeah, that's something that everybody can do. Just really socializing. But if you get back to that testing thing, just know what you want to do. Whether you want to, if you want to go compete on the weekends, and that's a way for you to bond with the dogs, and by God, let's go do it. We can train that. You can train that, but a lot of us can't go travel all across the country and compete these dogs. So the hunting is where we get all our satisfaction. So let's focus on what we like. And it's not a bad idea bringing the dog into training for the summer when it's hot, and getting a little upgrade, refresher course, and maybe a little bit more commands in, and a little bit more crispy for the next season. So we do go up north because it's so blessed hot in Texas. It's just, I don't know how you can't have a hot trainer and you can't have a hot dog. The combination is not good. So when we head up north during the summer, it's nice and cool, and we have cool water, cool places to run. The trainer stays level-headed as well with the dog, because that dog, once it starts really panting, and I mean, after the first retrieve in 100 degrees, it's like, I'm done. It makes it tough to train. But anyway,
reminds me of a story. So I'll give you a chance here to wrap up. I think we've got about 8 more minutes left, but it reminds me of a story. When I was training Penny, at the recommendation of a few people, I bought that Butch Goodwin book, A Retriever from the Inside Out. And you and I may have talked about this before, I can't remember, but in that book, he talks about his start as a trainer and a dog breeder. And when he was just starting, he would put a lot of emphasis into wanting to get dogs from a bloodline of like out of a field champion, right? Or a national field champion. And he's like, saved up this money and he spent it on I think maybe a stud fee. And he got like took the pick out of it, and he trained this dog. So the guy's a big hunter too. He lived in Idaho at the time. I think he lives in Texas now, but anyways, he would take this dog out, and he would often take multiple, not just the same dog hunting every time, but this particular one that was out of a NFC. And he said that for multiple hunts, he could never figure out what the dog was doing, but it was like, he wouldn't really watch birds very much. He wasn't that good of a duck hunter. And he was like, but he would never figure out. He said the dog would just move its head back and forth, and they would hunt the same spot. And he said, we'd only do it at this one spot. And then he said, it has happened like 3 or 4 times. And then finally, like the 5th time rolls around and he figures out that the dog is watching cars on a bridge, like 8 miles away or some obscene distance, right? It's just like, it's marking your eyesight. It was so intense, it's like that, we're so good, let's say, that it was able to see something this crazy far away that even his, that he wasn't really able to observe is say as good as the dog, right? And it was like that was his testimony as to when he kind of switched in terms of realizing there's a big difference, or a difference, let's say, in what you might want in a field trial or a family dog and a hunting dog. It's like that, these dogs are bred to, a lot of those field trial dogs are bred to win a game, right? Not, and you have to bear in mind, while that does mean some of those aspects also apply to hunting, it doesn't necessarily, it's not 1-to-1, right? I think you've been saying that basically, in other words.
Yeah, we like to watch the parents. I mean, every field trial dog, that's another thing. If you like the dog, I mean, go watch it. They have events all over this country that you can watch the stud of any good dog that is performing at those high levels and see if that's the type of dog you want. Because yes, they got some fancy names on it, but I'll tell you mine, my field trial dog is super mellow, but it's not a hard running dog. It's a lot like Cash, or they're actually brothers, and it's a mellow dog that thinks a lot. And I think that's what it is. Now there are some out there that just fly through it. I think sometimes they get a little bit bad rap without going out and watching them, because it's absolutely amazing what they do. But they do have to have, a lot of them have to have that determination. It doesn't have to, a lot of times we think of drive as how fast the dog is going. I think it is the determination to get to the bird. I don't care if he walks there. If he goes through hell in a handbasket to get there, and gets the bird, that's a lot of drive to me, versus a dog that just frantically runs out there. And that, I think that a lot of times gets labeled as their field trial dog, is just and gone, and it doesn't matter. And that's what people are wanting. But really, you want a dog that, I believe you want a dog that's more determined to get to the bird. Like
Relentless. Relentless, right?
Yeah, relentless. Like if we throw that thing in a pile of sticks or whatnot, I mean, he's belly crawling in there, versus the other. But the field trial dogs is a good dog, but it is tough in all reality, it's hard to get to those really elite dogs when they start breeding those super high end dogs anyway. But the biggest thing, I mean, if we're sitting on a budget, let's just make sure we look at mom and dad. Let's see what they're like. Is it a dog that you enjoy?
So real quick, I don't want to cut you off, but I think we got 3 minutes until the meeting cuts off here. If you just want to tell us, what you got going on. I know we talked about a couple of things that some up and coming stuff that you were working on, and then how to get a hold of you. I know you mentioned something about some online stuff. You want to talk about that now?
Well, we haven't started yet, but we're going to do Solve the Dog. We're going to launch that hopefully here fairly soon. We're going to do some series of basic abilities of teaching a dog, and just trying to get in how to solve the problem for the dog, how to make that problem the easiest solution, if that makes sense. So what A plus B equals C. How do we get C as efficient as possible, or as the easiest way? Then we're also looking at doing just another, like a gun dog type hunting thing, because what's happening right now is, inflation is going crazy, and to keep a dog with us, I understand it's expensive, but maybe it's a little bit less expensive if you can do a membership with us, and we can kind of show you what to do. And I don't think we do. Our way of training is a lot different. The way I brought up through the gun dogs is probably totally different than most anybody that I know. So I have a little bit of outtake on certain things, but we're doing that. But right now we're starting to pack our bags here in about 6 weeks to head up north. That's where we'll bring a lot of our gun dogs, get them sharpened up, and also some of our competitions, competitive dogs, whether they're going to go into the AKC hunt test, UKC hunt test, or we'll do a couple of field trials up there as well. So we'll be busy for sure. We train dogs pretty much 24/7 every day of the week. We're doing something with a dog.
What's your social media tags on like TikTok and all that at Facebook?
So everything is hard retrievers. So you can look us up on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We're pretty much everywhere. Probably our biggest thing. I probably stay more consistent on Facebook, and we're starting to look at probably coming back to TikTok a little bit, but we're probably going to start really doing a lot of website subscription base for all that not so free information. I guess we'll give you some helpful hints, but we want to also give you the correct path to go to instead of going to one thing and you sit there and get a lot of information everywhere. Sometimes it's overwhelming and it's contradictory, and you really need to find a program that kind of goes on the same path, and it's not just everywhere. It's not like you're just trying to grab from every book everywhere to one thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, consistency is the most important thing. I think you posted something about that the other day on Facebook.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, not a problem. Anytime. We're here at night anyway, when I'm not training dogs.
Hopefully we'll get to go on a couple hunts next year.
Yeah, we need to schedule something. Hopefully I'm free. The plan this year was to be free, but a couple of things happened and I always end up with a little bit more dogs than I thought I was going to. So
That's a good thing, man.
yeah, so we'll try to get away during that hunting season and definitely do some hunting. Let y'all see a couple of dogs, or we can hunt y'all's too and have fun with them.
Yeah, man. All right. Thanks, James.
Yeah, thanks, man. Good talking to you.
All right, no problem. Bye.